Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. I'm your host, TheDividendAristocrat, and in today's video, we're going to focus on which stocks I've been buying the most of in 2025 so far. Now, we recently passed the halfway point for the year, so I do think this is a good time to zoom out a little bit and take a look at my overall portfolio action. If you guys do appreciate the transparency and are enjoying the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I post weekly investing videos. As a reminder, this is not financial advice and I'm just merely sharing my opinions on this channel. Now with that being said, let's start by taking a look at my portfolio dashboard. So in total, I've invested $51,892, and of that, $17,061 were from this year alone, and we're going to take a look at which stocks contributed the most to this amount invested. My current value sits at $67,520, and my unrealized gain is at $15,600, or a 30% total return. Now in total, I have 21 different holdings, and I have been reducing them throughout the year. My goal is to get it closer to 15 holdings, but I'm not sure I'll be able to get there, but maybe 18 holdings would be a comfortable place to end the year at. Overall, I want to move a little bit away from diversification and try to concentrate my portfolio just a little bit more. Now, before we get into which stocks I invested the most into this year, let's take a look at what I did last year. So taking a look at my investing plan for 2025, I believe I posted this video either at the end of 2024 or at the beginning of 2025, but in this video I basically discuss how I did in 2024 and what I'm going to be changing moving forward. If you guys haven't yet checked out the video, I do think it's a pretty valuable watch. It goes into detail on my investing strategy for this year, so if you want to check it out, I'll pin the video out here and I'll also put it in the description down below. But in general, during these videos, I try to show my largest investments from the previous year, which in this case was 2023 when I recorded this, and then my largest investment for the current year, which was 2024. Now we're in 2025, so we'll be taking a look at what my largest investment is for the first 6 to 7 months of 2025. But taking a look at 2024, my largest investments here were Booz Allen Hamilton, United Health Group, and Google. You can see that I put the most money into Booz Allen Hamilton at $3,500, $2,400 into United Health, and $1,445 into Google. Now, Booz Allen Hamilton and United Health have not performed that well so far, as we'll take a look at in a bit, but I'm pretty happy with these three investments regardless, and I have faith in them long term. Now, I do want to give a shout out to Ryan Williams. Usually I do record these videos at the end of the year showing my largest investments, but I was inspired by a recent video of his covering his 6-month progress basically into the year, what he's invested into so far. So I wanted to do a spotlight on my portfolio as well. Also, if you guys have noticed, I'm a little bit under the weather, so sorry if my voice sounds a little bit nasally. I'm still trying to get over a cold. It feels like I've been getting sick every other week this year. It's been a pretty rough year for me so far. So the first stock we're going to take a look at, and the one I've invested most into so far in 2025, is Google. Now, this is one of my top stocks from last year, and going into this year, I was hoping to be able to add more into this position. If you look at some of my older videos from the beginning of the year and from 2024, I was definitely talking about how I wish I had a larger position in Google, and I believe I got some good opportunities to add more into the company. Now, I definitely took advantage of those opportunities. We'll take a look in a second how much I invested into the company this year, but it's a pretty large amount for my portfolio size. So hopping into my order history section, here we can see all my purchases for all my companies. I've already filtered it out by Google and I filtered it out for 2025. So you can see all my purchases right here. So I made several purchases here, so they were all pretty small individually, but adding the total up, we can see that the amount that we have here for Google invested this year so far is $3,101. Now that's a pretty large amount for me. Most of my positions in the portfolio are probably under $3,000, and this is already adding into an existing position that I had. Now, as you can see up here, I did start buying the company again at $162 per share, and that is a little bit higher than I would have liked, but it's still a good purchasing price in my opinion for Google at the time. And as it dipped down towards $140 per share, I just continued adding to my position. Now, I was definitely hoping it would continue dropping below 140, which is why I only bought 2 shares right here. Otherwise, I would have gone even more heavily. But the other factor to consider is my allocation in my portfolio to Google. My position was already getting very large, and I tend to manage my risk in the portfolio by managing my allocation, so this is definitely bigger than I'd want to have it long term. So with all these recent purchases, my average price paid or my cost basis is $146 per share, but if you look at my initial purchases into this company, it was actually between $90 to $100 per share. The current price is $185, which gives me a total return of 26.89%, and my amount invested in total is $5,000 because I purchased 35 shares. Now with the gains so far, my current value of the position is $6,500 and my dividend earned has been $15.77 with an annual payout for the whole position of almost $30. Now, the reason this dividend payout is low is not because I haven't invested a lot into it. My position is actually pretty big at almost 10% of my portfolio value, which is what I was talking about earlier. This is a little bit too big for a single position long term, but as time goes on, I'll continue adding into other positions, which will bring this allocation down relatively. So the main reason the dividend is pretty low is because of that yield. The current yield right now is 0.45%, which is probably the smallest in my portfolio, and the yield on cost is at 0.57%, which is almost just as low. Now, the second most purchased holding in my portfolio this year is VOO, and it's an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. So as you can clearly see right here, I've been making a lot of different purchases into VOO throughout the year, and that's because I have a goal of investing $100 every single week of the year into VOO. Now, I also cover that in my 2025 goals, which is why it's a great video to check out if you haven't already. But basically, every single week, I'm putting in at least $100 into VOO. Sometimes I forget and I have to make up for it in, of course, the following week. And then some weeks also, I put more than $100, depending if I have extra money laying around or if I think there's a better opportunity or if it's a good price to be buying it at that time. So as you can see, based on the price fluctuation, I have a different quantity that I'm buying. So sometimes it's 0.2, 0.21, 0.2 again, 0.19, 0.18, and right now, because the price is so high, I'm only buying 0.17 shares each time for $100. Now, this has been quickly adding up. In total, I've invested $3,099 into VOO this year, which I'm really happy about. Jumping into the MyPie section real quick of my portfolio, we are a little bit zoomed in right now, but you can basically get the idea. I have VOO and schd as my key to success section. They are my foundation of the portfolio. And right now, VOO makes up 20K, whereas schd makes up about 6.3K. Now, the main reason I started doing this weekly investing is because the allocation that I was targeting for my key to success was 50%. My current allocation is much lower than that at 38.8%. Now, the easiest way to fix that, in my opinion, is to continue adding into these positions. I'd rather add into these positions instead of selling out of these positions to fix my allocation. Now, with this weekly investing strategy, I do hope that over time, my key to success section will continue to climb towards 50% of portfolio once again. It used to be higher than that, but now I've been having a bit of a hard time keeping it at that 50% target. So going into my holdings, you can see that my average price paid is $381.38. This is the first stock I ever bought in my portfolio. It is an ETF, but for a long time, it was the only thing in my portfolio. Now, I am a big believer in the S&P 500, and I do believe that it's basically the best way to invest in the stock market, but I also enjoy investing in individual stocks, which is why I have a portfolio that contains both the ETF VOO and, of course, individual stocks as well. Now, the current price sits near its 52-week high at $576.92, and I purchased 32.79 shares in total, with 34 shares after reinvesting those dividends. Now, this ETF is one of my best performing holdings in the portfolio because I purchased so many of it when the price was very low. My amount invested was $12,500, but the current value sits at almost $20,000, which is a 60% total return or very close to it. Now, the dividend yield is pretty low at 1.21%, but my yield on cost is higher than that at 1.83%. And because of the large allocation at 30% of my portfolio, I've actually been paid out a lot of money in dividends at $713, which has all been reinvested back into VOO. My annual payout for this holding is expected to be around $240 per year. Now, the third biggest addition to my portfolio this year is Uber, and this is a position that I started in late 2024, and I've been adding a lot into it in the beginning of 2025. So right here, you can see all my purchases this year. So I bought a lot of it, I think, in December of 2024, which of course is not showing here right now. But you can see in January and February, I was purchasing a decent amount of the company at almost $2,000. Now, after February, my purchases, they get smaller. As you can see right here, I was purchasing 5, 3, 5, 2, and that's because this was already a very big position in my portfolio, and I prefer to focus on dividend paying stocks, and Uber does not currently pay a dividend. In total, this year so far, I've invested $3,004 into Uber, which is a very substantial amount. Taking a look at my actual position, my average price paid is right under $65. The current price is about $90 per share, which is not bad at all, and I purchased 66 shares in total. Now, in terms of how much I invested total, I invested $4,200. So I invested $1,200 in 2024 basically, and the rest was done in 2025. And it currently makes up about $6,000 of my portfolio value, or about a 40% total return, which is really nice. Now, there is no dividend information because the company does not currently pay a dividend, but right now it does make up about 9% of my portfolio value, which is a little bit higher than I would like, especially with the robo-taxi and Waymo uncertainty. Now, to me, I do think Uber is going to continue to have a place in this market, even if robo-taxis become commonplace, but we'll have to see how it plays out over time. Now, I was only going to focus on my top 3 stocks that I purchased the most, but since VOO is an ETF and I've been investing weekly into it, I don't really want to count that, so we'll also add in one more bonus stock, and that's UNH. Now, UNH is the ticker symbol for United Health Group, and I have a pretty sizable position in this company. Though my total return has been abysmal so far, the company has really been struggling this year, as have many other health insurers. So if you remember from earlier in the video, I showed you guys my top purchased companies in 2024. UNH was one of them, and now it's also the top purchased company in 2025 so far, making up about $2,269 worth of investments. Now, I was not expecting going into this year that I'd be adding much more into United Health Group. It was already a fairly large position of mine, but the company's stock price dipped significantly, and I do think it's a potential buying opportunity. Now, I do want to clarify that there is a lot of risk involved right now with investing in United Health. There is a lot of risk associated with the health insurance industry in general in America right now, so definitely invest at your own risk. For me personally, I saw it as a buying opportunity. I'm a long-term investor, so I'm hoping that in the next 5 to 10 years, the company will correct itself and perform well once again. However, I will keep an eye on the company's earnings calls over the next 1 to 2 years, and if the fundamentals start deteriorating too significantly, I won't hesitate to sell. So starting in April of this year, I bought one share, and honestly, it was a very expensive price compared to what it's trading at right now. This was $425 for the share. Then the stock price began to dip down, and as you can see, I purchased partial shares using Fidelity, which is a broker I'm testing out right now. Before that, I was using Vanguard exclusively. So as the stock price continued to dip down, I continued adding to my position, but I'd already added a fairly substantial amount by this point, and this is where the stock price did bottom at $260 to $250 per share. Now, of course, in an ideal world, I would have waited and invested all my money at $260, but it doesn't always work out that way. So taking a look at my average price paid, I'm in the red by a fairly large amount. I paid about $400 per share, which is an expensive price comparing it to the current price, which is at $282.65. I purchased 11.668 shares in the company. With dividends reinvested, I have 11.851 shares. My amount invested was $4,688. Unfortunately, my current value sits at $3,349, which is a $1,300 unrealized loss or a 28.55% negative return. I have earned some nice dividends from the holdings so far, 75.62, and my annual payout going forward is $104.76. Now, when I was purchasing the company, I believe the yield was way under 2%, probably around 1.4 to 1.5%, but the current yield sits at 3.13%, which is honestly a pretty nice entry point for this company. It's very rare to see it at such high dividend yields. Now, historically, they have grown their dividend at a fast rate, but I'm sure in the next couple of years, they'll be slowing that down, especially with all the problems they've been having. But if they can even sustain this dividend, a 3.13% starting yield for a company like this is fantastic. My yield on cost is at 2.2%, and that's because my buy price is much higher than the current price of the stock, and my allocation is at 5% of my portfolio, but if the stock price does go back up, we could see this trend upwards again as well. So as always, that does bring us to the end of today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at which companies I've invested the most money into so far this year. We're about at the midpoint, and we'll do a follow-up on this at the end of the year. Now, if you guys did enjoy the video, the only thing I ask of you is if you could leave a like. It helps out the channel a ton. If there's any questions you guys have that weren't answered in the video, definitely leave them down in the comments below and I'll be happy to get to them. And if there's anything you want covered in a future video, let me know down below as well. I'll be happy to get to that as well. Also, if you did make it this far into the video, comment down below which holdings you've invested the most into so far this year. I'd love to know. If you haven't yet watched last week's video where I talk about which stock I recently sold out of, check out this video right here. And if you want to see the video before that where I talk about my dividend income for the month of June, check out this video right here. Remember, the best time to invest was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. I want to thank every single one of you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.